I'm excited to chat with you all today. We're here to talk about content marketing. Before I dive in, I want to talk a little bit about myself because I like talking about myself. Kidding, but I do want to give you a little bit of background on who I am. I've been at HubSpot for 7 years. We're a relatively large company now. When I joined, we weren't. We were still what we considered a startup, but we sell marketing, sales, and services software and a free CRM. But what's been really fun at HubSpot is we've developed a massive content strategy from day one. So I'm going to talk a lot about that today and hopefully give you some insights. Prior to HubSpot, I was at 2 other startups, all in the tech space, and I actually built content funnels at those as well. Some were successful, some weren't. I'm going to give you my tips and tricks today to hope that you can not make the mistakes I did and learn from the things that did work for us. So today, the 4 things I hope you all walk away from. 1, determine the best topics to drive business impacts from content for your business. I believe that content marketing works for every industry, B2B, B2C, absolutely anything. You might need to adjust slightly what I say based on your industry, but I believe it works, and I hope that when you walk away, you understand what topics you want to be using as well. How to get that content created effectively with either your own team, external people, or AI. We live in 2019 in a time that AI actually can help us do every aspect of our job, including content marketing. How to make sure that content is seen by your audience. There's no point in spending time making content if people aren't going to find it. And last but not least, how to measure that content. So first, let's level the playing field about what content marketing is. Because over the last 10 years or so, we've all heard this buzzword. We've heard the word inbound marketing. We might think that they're the same thing, but let's just level the playing field for the point of this conversation. Content marketing is a marketing program that centers on creating, publishing, and distributing content for your target audience, usually online, with the goal of attracting new customers. So now let's jump right into the first part. And I'm going to convince you, if you're not convinced yet, why a startup should spend time on content marketing. Because most of us in this room are startups, and even if we're not, we're all strapped for time. I'm strapped for time. I work on a very small team at HubSpot. There's 3 of us doing all things. I'm sure most of you are on teams of 3 or less. Even though I work at a large company, we still are very scrappy, and we call ourselves a startup within a big company, within HubSpot. So let's talk a little bit about why it's important. Number 1, it costs less money. How many folks have a big budget in this room? Okay, 1. We have 1 person. We should all go out for drinks with him later. I have a tiny budget. I was just joking earlier about overall HubSpot. We've got, it's a big company, but my team's got no money. Content marketing costs a lot less, sometimes no dollars other than your own resources, right? I could go home and write something today, and it wouldn't cost HubSpot any money other than my salary. If you're looking at the amount of investment put in, you actually get 3 times the number of leads from content marketing than you do from paid advertising. Reason number 2, it helps your sales team or you close deals. 47% of buyers are actually looking at 3 to 5 pieces of content before even wanting to talk to your sales team. So you're helping them close deals faster by creating awesome content. This one's my favorite, and this is what we're going to be talking a lot about today, most of the presentation. Content marketing creates long-term value. As you create more and more content, it lives out there in the world if you created it correctly, which is what we're going to discuss today. And you can continuously drive traffic and therefore leads and customers from that content that you spent maybe a few hours on in one day creating and putting out there. It sets up a predictable, scalable, and cost-effective way to drive traffic and lead flow for your business. So this is a graph I love to show at HubSpot. The numbers are not real, but the concept is. Over time, your content will do your job for you. So when I first did this presentation in 2014, I ran the data. 75% of my team's leads were coming from content that we created in prior months. 75%. That means that if we all went on vacation for a month, we would still supply sales with 75% of what they needed. I reran the numbers for this presentation. We're at 95% of our leads coming from content from prior months. That means that every single time you're creating content, you're getting closer and closer to be on vacation forever. And last but not least, content marketing drives a lot more traffic. Obviously, it drives more leads. We're going to talk about that. But if you think about the types of things you can put out there in the world, you can put out product information, you can put out information about your brand, you can put out content marketing about various topics. You can only go so far with creating homepages and product content, but you can have endless numbers of topics to talk about for content marketing. So when we started content marketing at one of the businesses I was at prior to HubSpot, when we started that, it slowly stepped up, and then within a year, we had exponentially more traffic. Content marketing is creating, publishing, and distributing content to drive new customers, and content marketing costs less, lives on longer, and drives more traffic. So now the hard part, what should we actually write about? There's endless things you can write about. How do you figure out what's the best thing? So first and foremost, you want to make sure that anyone in your organization that's going to be writing content or helping you with content, I'm going to give you a lot of ways they can, but before you do that, make sure every single one of those people is aware of who your persona is, what their pain points are, and what you're trying to help them solve. Sounds silly, you all should know this, all your employees should know it, but make sure they do before you dive into this, or before you hire a freelancer to work with you, or you hire someone else to help you with this content. So let's talk a little bit about the goals of content. If you're sitting down thinking about how to build out the strategy, you might go in two directions. You might think, well, my customer has problems A, B, and C, and if I write a blog post about A and how to solve A in the product, I'm good, right? Yeah, you've created a really great piece of content that helps your customer solve a problem that they technically have with whatever your product or service is. You could also go on the far other end, which is creating really fluffy content that drives a ton of viewers, and hope that some of the people that happen to come to that piece of content is your target audience. An example of that would be top 5 celebrity baby names. Cool if you're in that industry, and like, apologies if someone is, and this is a bad example for you, but for everyone else, that's probably not a piece of content that's going to drive a lot of high-quality people to your website. That said, it's going to get a lot of eyeballs. Where startups need to focus is in the middle. You need to find this happy medium between content that is going to help your customers with what's actually going to help you get found through Google and other search engines. The other thing you want to think about is creating this content for every stage of the buyer's journey. Your buyer's journey is actually a flywheel, with the customer at the center of it. Every single thing you do from day one all the way through to becoming a customer and advocate for your business should be centered around the customer. So as you're creating content, you want to make sure you're creating content that attracts folks, that engages them, and then delights them, because as you're doing those things, you're going to be helping elevate the customer and therefore spinning that flywheel faster with the more people that love your business and want to share your business and your content. So I've got a couple examples I'm going to go through first, and then we're going to jump into some specifics. So example number 1, a company called AdLive.io. They're a startup that has built a software to manage advertising revenue for publishers. I've been chatting with their CMO and talking about their content strategy, and they have built a very great and efficient content funnel from attract, engage, and delight/close for their customers. So looking at it at the beginning, the first blog post that they've written for the attract phase, a challenge for the new year, how to explain header bidding to my grandmother. This is a really interesting blog post, right? I read this, it's kind of cool, it's definitely related to me if I'm in the advertising industry, but it's also fun. It's how to teach this to your grandmother. I might share this with my friends who are also in the advertising industry, starting to grow more and more attraction to the top. So now that I've engaged with AdLive, I might become a buyer, I might be interested. They start to send me additional content that's a little bit further down that funnel to engage with me, because now they know I'm likely a buyer, I've engaged with their website, so now they're sending me a piece of content through a nurturing campaign that's a little bit targeted more to the bottom. Commissions and transparency in the ad tech industry. Interesting. I could actually see how this could benefit me. So I click on a button, I click on a CTA within here, I decide I want to talk to a salesperson, I buy, I'm awesome, I'm a happy customer. They then send me some additional bottom of the funnel content, how AdLive technology offers automated onboarding thanks to Appy, its publisher manager. Now this is a piece of content that me as the customer is very likely to engage with, and I've now been delighted by their content. Another example here, LearnLux. LearnLux is a startup that founded about 3 years ago. It's a startup building a financial wellness program for the modern workplace. Now, that's a mouthful, but what that really means is they're helping people in the modern workplace have financial wellness. And they're really targeting those millennials and those Gen Zers who are coming out and don't know what to do with their 401k. What's the difference with an IRA? What do I do? How do I do my taxes? Because that's not taught anymore. So they have a really unique content strategy. Their end user is that millennial, that Gen Zer. So they're creating awesome content that's for that person. Should I file my own taxes? Tax day deals in Boston. Where to score free snacks, sandwiches, and massages. They're a Boston-based company. That's why this works. This content, super top of the funnel, it's probably going to rank on Google, and it's definitely going to be shared by their target audience. So now they have tons and tons of people reading their content, but their buyer is actually the businesses, the employers of these millennials and Gen Zers. So how do they engage with that side of the house? Well, they put calls to action, if you can read that, across all of these top of the funnel pieces of content that explain their mission, but then have a call to action to request LearnLux at your workplace. So now they've used content to get in front of their target audience and get them to engage with their employer. The employer then gets some middle and bottom of the funnel content, because they're the ones with the credit cards, about a case study. How does this actually work? And product information. Here's what's actually happening for us. So they've used content marketing in a two-pronged approach to attract that top of the funnel person as well as the purchaser and help them convert into a customer. So now that we've gone over two examples, I'm going to go into the nitty-gritty of how to figure out which content topics you should be creating like these companies did. So step one, determine what your customer is actually searching for. So if you don't have customers, you're going to have to be a little bit more creative here. That's okay. But looking into what your customers are searching for, what your prospects are searching for, is going to help you start this. What you want to end with is a long list of keywords and topics you could potentially write about. No keyword is wrong at this point. Interview those customers, or maybe potential customers if you don't have any yet. Hold one-on-one conversations. Maybe send out a survey to folks in your industry and database. Look through any of the customer or prospect communications that you already have. Maybe that's through a support ticket. Maybe that's your email inbox. Maybe that's a sales rep who has talked to a lot of folks in your industry. Start to collect trends on what you see they're asking about, what topics are being discussed, what questions are coming in. Start to look at any customer data that you have collected. Depending on what you're selling and what you're doing, you may have collected some data that actually could be really valuable if you start to look through that. Next, and this is my first suggestion into the AI world, there's really great tools out there that can actually do a big part of your job for you at this point. They're never going to completely replace your job, at least I hope not, but they are going to help you do your job better, faster, and in an easier way. Atomic AI is the one I'll suggest right here. There's lots more suggestions, but they analyze what's working on your website, what's being engaged with, what's not, and actually gives you suggestions based on what's happening on your website from your customers and prospects of other content you could be creating. And then last but not least, think forward to what your product is going to look like in 1, 2, 3, 5 years. What is the vision for your business? And start to create some keywords and topics around that as well so that you're not pigeonholing yourself into just what's happening today. All right, so once you do this, you've got a list of at least 10, hopefully, if not more, potential topics and keywords you could write about. Now it's time to go outside of your customer database, outside of what you do within your business, and do some real keyword research externally. Start to look at what existing content you have has driven traffic and look at specific keywords there. This second one is really interesting. It seems silly, but I honestly forget to do this almost every time I do this exercise. Do a Google search for one of the topics you think is relevant, and look at the suggested related searches at the bottom of the page. Almost all of those are probably going to be really good keywords for you to try to rank for. Look at social and Google Trends for hot topics happening in your industry right now. Use a tool like BuzzSumo to understand what other articles are ranking for these specific keywords, what they're talking about, and then what those businesses are also ranking for. See if you get a couple additional keywords there. And then you can check out some other paid tools. Most of the tools I'm talking about today are either free or have a free version. SEMrush does. SEMrush is also a really great tool for keyword research. So go through all of these different steps, and hopefully by this point you've now got a long laundry list of potential keywords to rank for. And you might be doing a little bit of this. He's falling off his chair. I'm not going to do it, but you're probably not pleased right now. You've got this long list. Maybe you've got 50, 100 words. You and your team have spent, or just you have spent 4, 5, 6 hours. If you spend more than that, please stop. You're probably doing too much. But you've got this long list, and you're like, oh my goodness, what do I do? That's okay. This is actually a really good thing. It's really good to have this long list. It's an opportunity. It means that you don't have to do this exercise again for a really long time, but it also means you have a ton of potential content you could be creating. So let's talk about how you go from sad face to a great content strategy. First, building topic clusters, which we're going to talk about. Prioritizing those based on business impact. Deciding on the content format, because that format actually matters to help you drive the type of conversions you want. And then last but not least, quite easily and more so for awareness than anything, building an editorial calendar. So Google changes their algorithm every day at this point. But the most recent one, probably a year, 2 years ago, was moving away from encouraging businesses and individuals to rank for a long tail keyword to ranking for a topic. So this means that businesses need to change how they think about content marketing. And HubSpot jumped in head first when this happened and completely revamping our content strategy. And I won't get into the details, but we were actually plateauing for a while on traffic, and the second we revamped this, we had hockey stick growth on our traffic. So it does work. And the key here is thinking in terms of topics versus keywords. So right now, if you've done the two things I suggested, you've got a long list of keywords. Time to turn those into topics. And this is the visual we have for what this looks like if you're a visual person. You've got your topic idea in the middle, your pillar content piece, and then you've got all these pieces supporting it, all around it, and they link back to one another. And that shows Google that you are the expert on this topic, this pillar, because you have all this other content about it that links back to it. So to give you a tangible example, my team, I run the HubSpot for Startups team, so we're talking to startups every day. At the beginning of every year, we do this exercise. We come up with our long list of keywords, and we put them into topic clusters. We have about 7 for the year. This is one of them, entrepreneurship. We realized that our customers and our potential customers were searching for keywords around entrepreneurship, and they searched for all these topics around it. So we came together and said, okay, our pillar is going to be entrepreneurship, so that title might be, what is entrepreneurship? And then all these keywords around it, and the yellow is actually quite hard to see, I apologize. All these keywords around it are blog posts or other smaller pieces of content we're going to create that will link back to that main page called What is Entrepreneurship? The purpose here is that we want Google to see that we are the owners of this topic in the world. So now I just said we've got 7-ish topics that we want to write for the year. How did we get down from maybe the 100 keywords on our list to 7? We prioritized, and we prioritized based on 3 things, and we actually do some sort of pie scoring. It's the concept of scoring in 1 through 10 for each one of these, and then adding it all up, and the top one you usually do. So the 3 things we look at: traffic potential. Obviously, that's an easy one. We all can understand that. What's the search volume? Using Google keywords and other Google tools, SEMrush, you can figure out what the search volume is of your keywords and your topic. What I'd suggest you do is add all of that up for each topic as opposed to each keyword. And that's great, but then you also need to look at the likelihood of ranking in the competition out there. Because while you might have a ton of search volume, if you go home and write that piece and you are not likely to rank and have a lot of competition, you're probably not going to get there, and it was a waste of time. So to figure out your likelihood of ranking / the competition out there, do a couple things. 1, figure out what your domain and page authority is. So domain authority is for your website. Using Moz toolbar, you can actually see what your domain authority is. It's a 1 to 100 score. And you can actually, if you download the toolbar and you do a Google search, you'll see every other organization's, every other search results domain authority as well. So you can start to see like, okay, I'm a 17, all the people ranking for this keyword are in the 70s and 80s, I have a ways to go. You can also start to look at what types of content those people are creating. So even if they're in the 70s and you're in the teens, but you click into the content and the content is broken, or the content looks like crap and you can make it look much better, or it actually doesn't answer the question, you have to remember why Google was invented, or what's Google's main goal. It's to try to make the experience for the person on the web great. So if that content that person clicks to isn't awesome, and you make an awesome piece, even if you're a lower domain ranking, you may be able to bump off one of those other folks that's higher up because you have a better piece of content. So keep all that in mind when figuring out traffic potential, rank it 1 to 10. Now think about the second bucket, customer need. We talked a little bit about this at the beginning. You want to create that content that both solves for the customer and helps you rank on Google. If you're creating a piece of content that's not solving for your customer, you're probably not going to want to rank this one very highly. And last but not least, a lot of people don't think about this one, at least they don't on my team, and I have to bring them back down to earth. You got to remember the ease of creation. You might come up with an idea that's going to get you 100,000 views a month, and your customer needs it, but if it's going to take you 3 months to create, and you have other things you need to do, because maybe you're the co-founder, you're the head of marketing, you're the head of sales, and you have a business to run, probably not the best use of your time right now. So rank these 3, give each one of your topic clusters a score. You have your top pieces you want to create. Next, determine this content format. So this content format, I'm going to give you some examples in case this is a little bit out in left field for you. Blog posts, ebooks, webinars, videos, research reports, quick hits, FAQs. All of these I like my team to think about, okay, how much resources is it going to take to create versus the longevity of the piece, how long will it actually matter, and the business impact. And they're kind of related. The thing I would love to add in here about business impact is it's not just how much traffic it's going to drive because it's found on Google. Also think about who's going to link to it. A research report is going to get linked to a lot more than a news-jacked blog post about something that'll only be hot for a couple days. If you're thinking about something that is quick to make, maybe there's something really great happening in the industry and you're like, I want to stop what I'm doing and write a post for 3 hours about whatever's happening in the industry right now, awesome. Go do it, get it out there. You're going to get a boost in traffic for a couple days. That's great. But you're not going to have that long-term impact that content can have, that hockey stick effect like I mentioned at the beginning. And that's okay. It's fine to do some of that, but you need to make sure you're also creating that content that will have that hockey stick effect. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got these data reports, right? This is something that you spend a lot of time and resources creating. Maybe you've done a survey to get that data. It's going to have a long impact on your business. My team has been focused at this bottom left and then top left for a long time. They're like, how can I get stuff out real fast? We need to create 3 blog posts a week. Let's just go, 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 go. So we create a lot of what is HubSpot? What is inbound marketing? What is a startup? Great content, fine, but Forbes is not going to link to that in their next article. So my team came to me and said, I really want to do a data report. It's going to take me 4 months because I'm not going to do it every single day. I'm going to spend a couple hours on it a week, but I'm going to get awesome content. I'm going to spend $1,000 getting the data. Can I do it? And I said, why? In that amount of time, you could create 10 newsjacked or how-to blog posts. And they said, because this is the kind of content that's going to last for 5 years. This is the kind of content that Forbes is going to link to and that other really big publications are going to link to. So you need to find that balance. So this is by no means an exhaustive list of the types of content you can create, but these are the things that my team's focusing on right now. And we think about this as we're deciding what content to create and how often, is how much of the resources it will take and what the business impact will be. And we make sure that in a given month or quarter, because we work on a quarterly basis, we've got a variation of types of content and that we've picked the type of format that will work for the content piece. So for example, if we're doing like a deep dive on how to do SEO for startups, that's probably going to be an ebook because that has a lot of business impact and we can use that for a long time to come. We can also chop that into other pieces of content as well. If we've got a really awesome presenter, maybe an influencer in the space that we want to take advantage of, we might pick a video or a webinar because for that person, it's only an hour of their time. For us, it's more resources, but we know that that's the right type of content format for that person or that thing that we're trying to create. Now it's time to make an editorial calendar. You want your organization to know what's coming out at what time and what you're working on, and it also keeps you accountable and it gives people a place to go to then promote that content later on. All right, so quick recap. Make a list of topics from customer research and keyword research that you've done. This is the longest part. That's going to take the most amount of time. I would say do this really well on a regular cadence. My team does it once a year, but we revisit it every quarter to make sure it's still aligned with our business goals. Then we prioritize all of those for the year based on business impact, the need of your customer, and the ease. That's that pie scoring again. Determine that content format, and then build that editorial calendar, just more so for visibility and keeping yourself aligned. How to actually create that content without a content team. You might all sit there and think like, I'm a startup. I don't have the resources. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. Maybe I'm a co-founder. I'm trying to raise my next round of funding. Maybe I'm trying to hire a team. I'm trying not to go out of business. I don't have time to do this. The answer is you do have time to do this. The creation of the content is actually the easiest part because every single person in this room has a story to tell and is a writer and could sit down at their desk when they get home tonight and write something that could be valuable for your business. No matter what type of employees you have, what their background is, where they've come from, what they do today, they could write you something of value. If you've got a person who's, that intern who's come from various investment banking background, they've got a cool story to tell. You've got that freelancer who sits in cafes and works, they've got a story to tell about how they were a successful freelancer. Or you've got this founder, this entrepreneur out here who likes to hike mountains and write, and then comes to you and says, I have a story to tell that's related to your business, I want to tell it. That's a great story too. So I'm going to go through 4 different ways that I personally believe and have done in the past startups can create this content. So number 1, let's look externally for writers. And this first option I like to call free writers because they're not fully free, but they are, depending on how you work on it, they actually can be free. So number 1, this is something that we've done at HubSpot from day 1 and we still do it today. Build out internships for content marketing. Most of you are likely have a business in New York because we're here. There's a lot of great colleges around. There's a lot of great students who are great writers. Create an internship, and if you pay them a small amount of money because they're interns, or you offer them credit to their to their school, they're going to come out and write some really awesome content for you. Build a contest around writing for you on your blog. Maybe it's a larger piece of content. Maybe it's a video. People want to be published. We have this thing at HubSpot called we want to make you not just HubSpot famous, but real famous. We actually try to make our customers real famous in the world. We publish them on our blog. We put them on our homepage. We put them on the stage at Inbound. We want to make people famous, and they love that. Put a contest out there saying, Submit your ideas for our blog or this content or this video, and if you win, you'll be published on our blog. And you could even not make it a contest and just ask and get a lot more content. Last but not least, this user-generated content. Go out to your customers specifically and your prospects, ask them what their problems are, what they're trying to solve, get them to create that content for you. This can be anything from a social media post all the way up to a long-form piece of content. I have to talk about AI, obviously, because it's 2019, it's really hot right now, but there's so many tools out there to help you create content and help you make your job easier. None of these are going to take it to 100%, maybe in a few years they will, but they're going to help you take it much further than you are today. Some of the tools that I love, and I think probably the most interesting one here, if you really are strapped for time, is automated insights. Associated Press has over 4,000 articles written by automated insights. They basically take data, they take some information, and they turn that into a piece that a human could actually understand. Pretty interesting. You might still need to do a little bit of work, but a great place to start. There's also a couple other tools here that are a little bit less writing content for you, but can help you take it to the next level. Acro links, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but they help you stay on brand. So basically you input all this information about what your brand is, what you stand for, what your voice is. As you're writing, or someone else at your business is writing, it will tell you if you're on brand or not, and it will give you suggestions so that you remain on brand. Helps get folks in your organization who may not be content writers actually writing in your voice. And Atomic Reach we've already talked about a little bit, but they help figure out what content you should be creating and give you suggestions as you're writing. And then last but not least, go after the freelancer market. I work at HubSpot. I don't have a freelancer budget, so I know this one's a little bit silly for folks in the room who may also not have a budget, but I have to put it up here because I do think it's a great tool if you have a little bit of money. And there's tons of freelancers out there. Upwork is probably the one that people know the most about. I've utilized most of these in my career, and all of them work pretty well. You always want to give it a once-over at the end. The one I'll call out, Publoft. So Publoft is a startup I just heard pitch last week in San Francisco. They're reinventing the way that content marketing, freelancing, and SEO works. They'll work with you directly to write that post. They seem pretty interesting, and they seem on the lower end of the cost, so if you're interested, I have no investments in them, so like this is not a plug. I just think it's a pretty cool company, so check them out. Next option, I think this is really interesting, is going to a place where the audience already exists and the posts are casual. So we've all heard of Quora and Medium. If you haven't, go home and check them out. They're pretty great. Quora is a place to ask questions on the internet, and people go in and reply to them. Our CEO and CTO for years have been on Quora answering questions out there in the world about marketing, sales, services. Our CTO is actually an angel investor, so he does a lot in there as well. What's really cool about this is it's casual. You go in, you see a question, you answer it as if you're writing an email. You don't think too much about it. You're not worrying about it being, intro, middle part, conclusion. You're just posting. What's really cool is you can then take that information, that blog post, and it's probably 90 to 95% of the way to where you want it to be put on your blog or to be syndicated on your LinkedIn. So take it that far. Have someone on your team look it over and get it to that point. Same things happens on Medium. Medium's a casual posting as well, and there's people there already reading it. Come up with an idea and reply with a post on Medium. Get in front of an audience, get a piece of content, then syndicate it on your blog and on LinkedIn, and now you're getting 3 times the eyeballs for the price of 1. Option number 3, enable your employees to write. This is what HubSpot used for about 8 years. I have a slide later with the exact number, but I think it's 8 years. Because your employees, whether it's your friends that you've talked to because, hey, you're an individual employee and you're the only one that knows anything about your business, maybe it's your unpaid founders, maybe it's your contractors, they're the ones talking to your customers, your potential customers, and the industry every single day. So they probably are the ones that are actually going to be able to answer these questions better for you. This can be tough, though, because could you imagine going into a room of sales reps or engineers and saying, like, hey, now you're responsible for writing 1 blog post a week? Doubt any of them are going to say yes. Or you could require that in your job descriptions, but you have to do that from the beginning. So this is definitely a more difficult path to go down. But if you really want to scale up your content marketing, a great way to go. So some tips I'll give you that we've used at HubSpot. Number 1, you have to make it easy. Create templates and examples. Explain to them why this is actually going to be helpful for the business. One of the things that we did at HubSpot early on, remember we were selling a marketing software back then and we were marketers, so we said, we're marketers marketing to marketers, so just go to your desk and write about what you did today. That's probably going to be a pretty good blog post. We made it easy for our employees to understand how they can do this. You can hold competitions and give out rewards if you ever need the volume to come up. Again, like I said, acro links is great to keep people on brand, right? As they're writing, it'll let you know, that person know if they're on brand or not and give suggestions. And to that point, you really want to make sure that strong and shy writers alike feel comfortable writing. When I first started at HubSpot and I was required to do 2 blog posts a month, I was petrified. I thought, oh my God, they're going to hate my content, I'm going to get fired, I'm a terrible writer. So when I first started writing, I got a lot of support from that team as to what the brand voice was, how to have a proper grammar. We used a tool called Grammarly that helped us. So this is really important to make sure that your employees feel empowered to write and know how to do it properly. We also used to have hack days where we would all sit in a room and work together on blog posts. Thursday afternoons where we'd go to the bar down the street and all write blog posts. But really make it easy. Number 2, mobilize your employees to create the content themselves. Explain that creating content and being published on your blog as well as in other places is actually really great for their personal brand. Who doesn't want to be famous? Help them put that content out there and get their name out there. It also helps them build their portfolio for the future. Allow your employees to syndicate that on LinkedIn as well. And last but not least, at the end of a month or a quarter or however long you're measuring, let them know how much of an impact they made on the business. It'll go a long way. Last but not least, option number 4, maybe you're at 10 employees right now and you're ready to hire a full-time marketer or a full-time content creator. Hire someone. They still need to be a jack of all trades. They still need to create this content and attract, engage, and delight. But now they're the ones owning the strategy, and you can kind of go back to what you were doing, and maybe they want to keep engaging with your employees, but that's up to them at this point. Every single piece of content that individual creates, or anyone at your organization, should be built to be repurposed often, because it takes time to create any type of content, and work with at least one stage of the customer journey. So I'm going to go through an example of how my mind works when I'm planning with my team about how to make sure content can be repurposed, and how in just a few hours we can get content for an entire quarter or month, a quarter or 6-month period. Number 1, we want to stretch our content pieces. So let's say you've sat down, you figured out your topics, you figured out your formats, you figured out that you want to create 4 long-form pieces of content, ebooks, webinars, etc., something that will generate leads, generate contacts for your business. You're going to create 2 at the attract phase because you think you want to attract more people, you want to make your top of the funnel stronger. You're going to create 1 engage piece and 1 piece that helps close, or once they've closed, it helps them be delighted with your organization. Cool, you've created these 4 pieces. But as you're creating these 4 pieces, I encourage you to think about how you could break that up to make 6 blog posts for each piece of content. With the ebooks, it's easy. Just make that 6 chapters and make each chapter a blog post. With the video and webinar, it might be a little bit more challenging, but I can challenge you to still do it. That's awesome. You went from having 4 pieces of content to 28 pieces of content. All blog posts can rank for different long-tail keywords, with the piece of content maybe being that pillar like we talked about earlier. And what's even more is each one of those blog posts can have several tweets, several Facebook posts, several LinkedIn posts, and other things you can put out there in the world to drive more engagement of that content linking back. So now you've done a little bit of work, and you've got 28 pieces of content. So this is the way my mind works. This is how long it takes me to do stuff. I'll go over this quickly. You can ignore it if this isn't the way your mind works, but I think about how long it actually takes me to make this stuff and decide, is my time better spent doing this or something else? So for me, creating those 4 long-form pieces of content takes about 60 hours. I think each blog post takes me about 2, so now we're at 48 there. And then all of those social things, because I'm quite a slow designer, takes about 12 hours. So all in all, that's about 3 full weeks of time if you work a 40-hour week. None of us do, but let's pretend we do for the sake of this example. So you sit there as the founder, as the CMO, as the person who's deciding the content strategy and saying, I can either stop what I'm doing for 3 weeks and have 6 months of content, if you're posting once a week, or I can spread this out over the course of the 6 months and work a few hours a week to get it done. Either way, very manageable for the amount of impact it's going to make on your entire business. So first, start simple. Focus on the FAQs or other things that are already coming into your organization that people are already asking, right? You can make a quick blog post from any one of the FAQs coming in. You can also write about what you did today. That's something that most audiences would be interested in. Or how you solved X problem. Other folks in the industry probably have the same problem. You can help your team by staying on brand with acro links. I've talked about that. You can start working on a first draft with AI, like Automated Insights or Quill Engage. You can work on a first draft internally with something like a Google Doc, like super basic. This is something my team does. If we have an idea for a blog post, a webinar, etc., we put a quick outline into a Google Doc. We then send it out to the team. There's 4 of us. And we say, hey, can anyone spend 10 minutes looking at this and putting in insights? And we wait 48 hours. By the end of that 48 hours, 75% of that blog post is written for us, which is awesome. It means that we don't have to do nearly as much work. We just take it to the finish line. Proofreading, if you don't have time for someone to read it over with a fine-tooth comb, start with something like Grammarly. Do have a human read over everything at least once. Doesn't have to be an editor, but at least proofreading it. And last but not least, I've mentioned this a lot, but always be repurposing that content. Very, very important because you're spending so much time on it that you can repurpose it. All right, SEO. That's why we're creating content, right? It's not just to help that customer who's already a customer on a one-to-one basis. It's to be found by potential net new customers. So some quick tips to really improve that SEO. You want to make sure your metadata is correct so that Google can find you. That's what the search engines look for. There's a tool called WordLift. It's just for WordPress, as I understand, but it automatically generates the metadata from your post to help you get found better. You also want to make sure that your on-page SEO for the post is accurate and will make you most likely to be found. That's by putting additional keywords in that make sense. There's tools out there that do that for you. Google Search Console and Google Keyword Planner, as well as one called SEO Minion. All really great tools to help make sure that that post has all the words you want in there. And last but not least, I just learned about this recently, but it's been around for a while. There's a tool out there to help make sure that your header is the most engaging header for your specific audience and the specific call to action you have for them. It's by CoScheduler. It's called Header Analyzer. It literally looks at your header and it tells you, if you use this header, here's what the result you will get. If you want to get something else, here are some suggestions. Here are the positive words, the negative words. Really, really cool tool. Last but not least, design. I've mentioned a few times I am no designer. My whole team does really awesome design in the Adobe products, and I use PowerPoint. I made this presentation in PowerPoint. But that's because I'm not a designer, and I don't ever plan on being one, but I can still create good enough content, if not great content, out there with free tools. On the free stock photo side, there's 2 sites I would suggest you look at if you're looking for stock photos, unsplash.com and pexels.com, really great. And last but not least, on the design side, like use PowerPoint if you want to, use Word, and use this tool called Canva to help make any images for social that you might want or flyers, etc. To recap content creation, it can be made with little or no budget because it is everywhere. Look for external writers, look into AI tools that can help you to save time and money. Have your teams, maybe your co-founders, if your co-founders aren't here today, start writing in places the audience already exists. I think that's probably one of the #1 things that HubSpot did 12 years ago now, is get our co-founders out there writing. Enable your employees to write if that's the path you want to take. If you do that, I would encourage you to take some time to think about that program. You don't want to just jump right off. Last but not least, hire that first content creator when you're ready and task them with the full strategy. So what does this look like in practice? This was a really fun graphic to put together. It's missing 1 year because I ran out of space, but this is HubSpot's content journey in a very small nutshell. This was created by me and my memory. But back in 2006, when we were founded, Brian and Dharmesh, our co-founders, were writing weekly, give or take. They were posting maybe once a week, every couple times a week, and that's all the content we had. 2017, our first marketing hire was hired. Mike Volpe was our CMO. And he immediately came in and said, I want to make a content strategy. That's going to be my #1 thing. So he started writing. Then he hired his first content hire in 2008. This person was tasked with blogging content and long-form content. That was their entire job. Move forward a few years, we started encouraging all of our employees to write and actually made it required at some point in 2011, 2012 to write twice a month. I always waited until the 30th every month, and then I scrambled to get this done. They didn't love that, but that was the reality of it. Cut forward a little bit more, now we've got a team of 4 content marketers. It took us about 6 or 7 years to get there, but now we've got 4 content marketers. Then we hosted a blog contest with a $2,000 prize. I won, humble brag, but I did cheat a little bit because I took an infographic, which is a great idea, by the way, because they're very exciting and very hot, on what does the color of your logo mean for your business. So a little clickbaity, not exactly what's related to the buyer persona that we were trying to get at, but I still won. Shortly after that, the blogging team stopped requiring us all to write because we didn't need it anymore. A lot of content was coming out. They had turned into editors, not writers. So now we just had a blogging team and a content team. 2017 comes around. Google algorithm changes happen. We realized we weren't focusing enough on top quality SEO content. So we redid our entire strategy, as I mentioned, and really saw that hockey stick growth in our traffic again to the blog. And now we're at 15 employees, give or take, on the content team. That number is not set in stone. It's a little bit more difficult now because we have so many people that do writing as part of their job, but not on the team. So as you can see, like over the last 12 years, we've done a lot, but the things I just mentioned to you today all happened for the first 10 years or so. So these tactics that you're taking today really can grow with you and work with you for many, many years to come. Part 4, your content's made, you're done, right? Are people just gonna go find it if you put it on a landing page? No, that's not how it works, unfortunately. It'd be great if it did. You wanna make sure that content is found because you've now spent 3 weeks of time making a lot of content. You wanna make sure people look at it. So the first thing I think about, this content is now optimized for SEO because you've listened to every single thing I've said today, you've done all your homework, all your research, and you're awesome, and you've created this really awesome piece of content that's optimized to be found on Google. You need to let Google know it's a really awesome piece of content. And Google finds out that it's a really awesome piece of content if a lot of people read it right away. So this first few days are really important to get as many eyeballs on it as possible so you can rank for months and years to come. So in that first launch, you make it live on a Tuesday. Make sure Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, a lot of people are looking at it. First thing I do is I send out an internal notification to my company. Now, when I started doing this, I probably had 30 people I was sending it to, so it made a big impact. But even if you have 5 people you're sending it to, you're still going to get a lot of results from that. And here's why. Let's say you have 5 employees and each one of them has 2,000 followers on Twitter. They go out and tweet this piece out a couple times. You're now in front of 10,000 people, or potentially 10,000 people, that you wouldn't have been in front of before. And every single time you get more and more employees, that's just going up and to the right. When I send this out, I make sure that they have everything that they need, including talking points, lazy tweets, and a section on how sales can use that offer so that sales can send it out to their prospects and customers if they want to. Next, pretty basic, send an email to your database. Now, I don't want you getting email fatigue. My team is starting to feel this. We send an email out once a week. It's a little bit too much for content. So that's why I say try not to launch more than one big piece of content a week if you want to use your email database. But if you want to make sure you're not getting email fatigue, if you've got some budget, look externally, publish it in a newsletter within your industry, and try to get in front of new eyeballs there. Next, post it on social. Social is still alive and well. Put it on your personal social, your company's social, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Pinterest actually is one that's been working really well for us lately. Figure out which one works best for you and your audience. We've learned that our audience really loves our content on LinkedIn. Great. Not so much on Facebook. Fine. Just lean into LinkedIn more. Use it on your website. Your website is your greatest asset. It has more eyeballs on it than anything else that you've created because you've put so much into it. So start using that real estate for your content. This first example on the top here, this is called a thank you page. Once you've downloaded content, you get to a thank you page that says, you got it, here you go. We start putting calls to action to other content in this real estate so that we're continuously engaging with people. So they're staying with us longer, they're stickier, and they have another opportunity to share that new piece of content that they may not have shared the previous one with. This bottom one is, featuring your content on your homepage or in a library or something like that. Look for places across your website that you can optimize for content. And last but not least here, look externally. So you've done everything internally. Maybe you are only one person, you don't have an internal. Okay, that's all right. Look external. Start talking to folks for content partnerships. I was just talking with AWS about maybe creating a piece of content together. I promote it to my database, they promote it to theirs. That's great. Great way to get in front of 2 audiences. Talk to influencers. If you're a co-founder, you likely have a lot of people in your network. Tap them on the back and ask for a tweet or ask for a link in their blog post. And last but not least, guest blogging. So we had talked about blogging earlier. I want to differentiate. This concept of guest blogging is you writing on another person's blog with a link back to your content. Also a very valuable way to get inbound links back to your content. So last but not least, I promise I am almost done, proving the ROI of that content that you have created. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with my boss or my CEO, and they've said, you've created all this content, you've been doing it for 3 months, where's the impact? I'm like, well, you used to have a $1 million advertising budget for the Super Bowl. Now you're asking me to create a content funnel. Like, it's not going to change overnight. It's going to take a lot of time. But guess what? I spent $0 and got you 5 customers. That ad on the Super Bowl got you 100 customers, but it cost you $1 million. Give me some time. Here are my early metrics. So it's key to have these metrics from the start so that if you're in the position I was in, you can respond with, hey, here's what's working, here's what's not. Give it some time. So I'm going to go through some of the things I look at on a daily basis or weekly basis, as well as the tools I use. So number 1, traffic. That's one of the main reasons why we're creating content is to drive more traffic, because if you have the proper nurturing campaigns in place, you can actually move these people from traffic into a customer. Google Analytics is like the number 1 here. Google Analytics is free. Second, looking in your CMS, whatever tools you're using for your content, you can determine what content is driving what traffic. Last but not least, I don't know if you've heard of tools like Crazy Egg and Hotjar. They're heat mapping tools with a couple other things as well, but the heat mapping is really cool. You can figure out at what point on the page they stopped reading, where they clicked the most. You can start to make decisions on what worked and what didn't. Next, of course, looking at conversion rates for all of this, by the way, very, very important. But next, we look at leads and submissions. So at this point, you've created a lot of content that has calls to action to some type of form, right? Maybe that's a form to talk to sales. Maybe it's a form just to get the ebook itself. Maybe it's a form to get a discount on a ticket for an event. With this, you'll need a marketing automation tool. You'll need a CRM and analytical tool. They're all intertwined. And then, this is not a tool, but something you want to look at is every single one of your places for conversion, so every single landing page, look at the submission rate for each one of those, because you want to make sure that you're making future decisions on what content is making the most sense for your audience. Last but not least, tracking the customers and revenue from each content piece. This is possible if you have the proper tracking tokens and the proper system in place where you can actually say, hey, that ebook that I spent 15 hours working on, that drove 17 customers over this quarter and this much revenue. I should get a raise. To do this, you obviously need all of your tools fully integrated. You don't need robust tools by any means, but you need those tools that you're utilizing to be fully integrated. As you get a little bit more sophisticated, you might want to start looking into a business intelligence tool. We started using Looker a little while ago. It's really been helpful because we have a much more sophisticated program than we used to. But at the end of the day, using Google Analytics and a couple other of these tools, I can look and say, hey, that ebook I worked on topic X was 10% better than topic Y. Let's go make more topic X content. The last bucket I'll talk about, because don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's really important, is looking at metrics around SEO. Because again, we're here to make sure that that content we're creating is helping us rank for the long term. Number one, look at the organic search traffic that's coming from those content pieces. To do this, you need some type of analytics tool to see how much of that traffic is organic search versus from a paid campaign or something else that you're doing. Look at the new contacts rate. You care about getting in front of new people, right? Which ones of your pieces of content are attracting more net new people? What is the conversion rates for your organic traffic versus your paid traffic? And last but not least, how are you ranking on keywords? Lots of really great marketing tools out there that will do that for you. This is the important one when you really want to own that sphere of influence that we talked about earlier on the topic clusters. So this is all fake data, so don't take anything by it, but this is what I look at on a daily basis. I start to look at our traffic by source to determine if things are working. I then dig in deeper for each campaign. And then I look at leads by the campaign themselves so I can determine which campaigns are working and which are not, which ones I want to do more of. Content marketing is a scalable way to grow your traffic and leads. Determine what content to create by looking at customer data and needs, as well as those search insights we talked about. Creating the content is actually the easy part because every single one of you and every single one of your employees has a story to tell and can go home and write. And with the tools we've talked about today, you can take your writing from good to great if you don't think it's great yet. Getting eyeballs on that content early will help pay off a lot in the long term. And again, there's tons of tools out there to help you take your content creation from good to great and help you do this and have a big impact on the business. Last but not least, have fun. So I've just talked for about 45 minutes. I'm going to drink some water. What's next? You need to go home and just do it. Go home tonight. Have a glass of wine if they have wine. I don't really know afterwards other than there's awesome food here. There's wine. Good. Have a glass of wine and go home and write. Drunk writing is like one of the best things to do. Edit sober, but write drunk. Go home and just do it. You all can do it. I hope you all feel empowered. Thank you so much. This has been a really wonderful audience. I appreciate it.